Anne-Brigitte and I, we're now retired, but we had a wonderful, long career in the ministry. It was about 44 years ago that I first started as a youth minister during the summers as I was getting a Bible degree from Abilene Christian University. And after graduating from ACU, 1981 was an amazing year. I graduated from college. I got married. It was a fantastic year. And so then it was off to North Carolina and then Boston to begin training for the ministry in Boston. And we went on the mission team to New York back in 1983. We've been around for a while.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. From New York, we went to Brazil. New York sent us to Brazil with a team of 18 people in 1987. So we do speak Portuguese. Then we went on to Africa. We were called to direct the sub-Saharan planting of churches. And so we spent 14 years in Africa, living and planting in Nairobi, in Abidjan, and then in Johannesburg was the longest place that we stayed. So because of Abidjan, we also speak French. And the gift of tongues would have been a nice addition
Really?
to our
Been great.
but that was a phenomenal 14 years. And then from there, we came back to Texas, and we were in San Antonio and working in the ministry until we retired just 2 years ago in 2023.
I became a Christian in 1983, grew up very religious, and was very convinced that I was saved until I actually started reading the Bible and comparing my conversion with what the scriptures said. It became pretty clear. So I was one of the first baptisms in the New York City church planting in 1983. We had been married already. Mike and I have known each other since we were 7 and 4.
7 and 4.
So we've been married 44 years. We have 3 grown sons, awesome sons, 2 daughters-in-law, and 3 grandchildren. So our lives are full. And all of those places that we lived were amazing adventures with lots of ups and downs. But that's a little bit of our story.
You know, the leadership journey has been, in my opinion, it's been incredible.
Yeah.
It has been the Lord has taken us to places where we never dreamed of going, and wonderful people that we've worked with, and it's been amazing. I would say something about the word ministry and ministry journal. You know, if you're thinking about leadership and you're thinking about ministry, you know, a lot's asked of the local minister as he preps sermons or preps a midweek or preps a staff meeting or goes into a counseling situation or is just out sharing their faith or meeting with people, helping, discipling. It's a full job. And I think sometimes we don't even realize the pressure that our minister is under and the weight of and the burden it can be. And one thing I want to say is, I look back, I'm glad we had support. I'm glad we had people and friends that supported us over the years. And wherever you are watching this, I want to encourage you to support the couple that is leading in your spiritual world. Support those people. They need it. As the Bible says, that is a blessing. That's to every advantage for the church, just to make their life a joy and not a burden.
So true. How's my journey been? I would say there have been highs and lows. You know, when you first go into the ministry, and then even when you first become in a more broad leadership, we're talking about being RFCs is one of the main focuses of this interview, if you will. There are a lot of highs and lows. And I do think that sometimes we can be naive and think this is just going to be amazing. And yet the example of our own Lord, who was amazing and perfect, and the Son of God, had incredibly satisfying moments of leadership. Feeding 5,000, feeding 4,000, the 12 deciding to follow, the centurion saying, just say the word. I mean, he had so many moments. I mean, a whole region, a whole town in Samaria coming out to hear him speak. And then he had incredible lows, incredible heartbreaking moments, clashes with the Pharisees, whole regions not accepting his word, his own hometown not accepting who he was, obviously Judas, the disciples at times getting it, the disciples at times not getting it. And I think that the journey, if we expect a journey like this, I think it's going to be very difficult, because even Jesus's journey was not like that. But if we expect a journey with highs and lows, and Jesus and God taking us through those, I think that the journey then is much, I wouldn't say easy. None of it's really easy. But I think it's
what to expect.
It's what to expect, yeah. So that's part of our journey, I think, highs and lows. It was good some days when I didn't want to do it anymore, he was fine. Some days when he didn't want to do it anymore, I was fine. The worst day was the day in Ghana when we both said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And just a lot of things had happened, but we helped each other through. So that did help. Because most days we were on the same low page at the same time.
It's fine if one person has a bad day and the other. There were a lot of highs.
Yeah.
You know, I just look back over the years and I think about going to Brazil and having 100 baptisms the very first year in Brazil, learning Portuguese, wonderful team, wonderful city of São Paulo, 200 baptisms the second year. Those are amazing times.
Incredible friendships.
Incredible friendships.
Unity, yeah.
We became a regional family chair couple when we moved to Africa. And that's when we switched from having a congregational responsibility to having a regional responsibility. And Africa grew to become 5 regions, is how it worked. So those were amazing days. We came, and there was one great church in Johannesburg, South Africa, and a shout out to Rana Lavanya Drabo for a fantastic job.
Yeah.
When we moved, they were the leaders there in Johannesburg. And Justin Renton, who happens to be standing behind the camera, was also there as a young, fired-up disciple who went on to do great things. Well, anyway, God worked. And from that beginning back in the middle 1987, 1988 and 1989, when we moved there, this now gone from 1 to 120 churches. And there's something like 65 or 75 seed plantings out there that are getting ready to be planted. It's really incredible. That was awesome across Africa in Portuguese, French, and English across the continent. Coming back to Texas, I think about how in just the churches that were planted, the growth. San Antonio had about 250 members when we moved in 2003. And when we retired 20 years later, there was over 600 members, and it was 3 churches had been planted, and Texas had grown. So our second assignment for regional leadership was in the state of Texas, and Texas was Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. We couldn't figure out a good name for that for years and years, so it was whatever. But so that grew. We had about 1,700 people in attendance when we became the regional family chairs, and that grew to 4,500 people. It was amazing to see the growth. It was at times over 300 people baptized year after year. It was great. I remember a leadership group at the beginning when we first moved to Texas. There were 18 leaders representing the entire region of churches, 18. A decade later, there were 250 at that same meeting. Young people were coming. They wanted to go into the ministry. There was just a great spirit. So there were some great highs. There were some great lows. She almost died in the Ivory Coast, giving birth to our second child. There were some tremendous lows. I battled with cancer. You never know what's coming. I had cancer in 1995. I think, just like the pages of the Bible, there's going to be some really great moments, and then there's going to be some days that are really hard.
Yeah.
When somebody asks me, well, what's it like to be in the ministry? It's great, and it's hard sometimes. And I just thank God for the journey, and I thank God for my wonderful wife.
Well, not for me.
It was great. It was great. It was a great partnership all those years, and the wonderful people that we served with.
One for me that was very important is that being an RFC is not your identity. It's a role, it's a service. And I think that often in any endeavor, whether it's ministry or secular work, it's easy as we get more responsibility to have a bigger ego. That's what happens with us. We're human. It's human nature. It's sin. It's pride. And I would just say, don't do that. Always felt like, I felt it nip at my heels at times because you're asked to speak or you're asked to do something or your ministry is highlighted. Just stay level, because you'll be up and you'll be down and you'll be both places again. And really only Jesus was perfect. Only he had a ministry that he did everything right in, and even he had problems. So I think ego can really get in the way of the role that God has asked us to play. And it's not a role for life, so be flexible, be easy, be self-aware. And those things helped me to not think so highly of myself, because I do think that it's difficult when it becomes your identity instead of just the role you're playing. Mm-hmm. I would also say that something that was really helpful for me is the connections and having friends that are in other places and having friends that will be honest with you about where you're at, who you are, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. That was very important for me. Connections that I've made over the years with people that we'd never been in the ministry together. I value Kim Evans has been one of my very best friends. We've never, ever been in the same place together and just connected at conferences. But she's somebody who I deeply value because she's loving and caring, but she's very straightforward with me and I with her, and we just help each other to be better. Those are a couple of things for me that I think have been crucial.
Yeah, I thought about this question a lot, and I thought about the idea, first of all, that personal spirituality is going to be really important in this, and in leading. I think you've got to just be personally aware that it is God, be close to God, be close to his word in prayer. It's something that's often talked about, but it's just simply so important. When we were asked to move to Africa, that led to some long Bible study about deep conviction and am I ready to stand up and do this job? This is going to be big, and God blessed us. And I think, though, my own personal spirituality is so important in this endeavor. It just isn't going to go well if I'm not doing well and walking with the Lord. Another one I think too is family. Ministry can really be tough on the family. You can just get into one more thing and one more committee and one more person to train and one more lesson to give and one more of this. And pretty soon, your family, it's suffering for that. You have to remember, you can't lead your family. Scriptures teach you shouldn't be trying to lead the church. So this relationship, the two of us, was always first in our lives. First Jesus, of course, but your ministry begins at home. It has to begin at home. Don't go trying to go off and climb high mountains if you're not first taking care of stuff at home and close together. Even as the Bible says, your prayers are not going to be heard if you're not listening and close with your wife. So that really helped a lot. That I knew that, that we had to be close, and we needed to be close and devoted to our children. All of that, your personal family life, so important.
And it was so securing for me. It gave me so much security and so much confidence with you being that way.
That is true. Anyone who's trying to be a regional family chair, here's one simple thing you're going to need to do. What's the big picture schedule of meetings that needs to happen in regions? You want to make sure that people are getting together, the right people are coming together at the right time of year, that you can have a productive meeting. You don't want to be overly meetinged out. Too many meetings is bad. Too few meetings can be bad as well. So, like I said, we had a roundup in Texas. When we came to Texas, we would have the annual roundup where all full-time people would come together along with boards and elders, deacons, anyone in a leadership capacity virtually was invited. And those meetings grew and grew and grew each year. But we also needed time. So there was the evangelist and the women's ministry, women's ministers retreat as well, where evangelists and their wives met together from across our 3-state region. And then there was a core planning team of 16 people. And that core planning team came together. It was 8 couples from across our region that would come together to talk about how we're doing in different places and cities in different situations. Each meeting would take up to a week for me and for Anne-Brigitte to organize. Lots of planning, phone calls, not just where would people stay, what would they eat, all that, but all this had to be done. We had to be organized to get these meetings. And then after the meeting, you spent time evaluating. And this is work that's done in the background. People show up in a meeting, they have no idea all the hundreds of hours it takes for a meeting to be organized, for it to run well, and the evaluation afterwards. But you've got to get people together, and it's got to be a great atmosphere, that we love one another, that we're coming together, that we're encouraging one another, that, hey, don't be nervous. This is just going to be a great time together as we build family. A lot of times we break off just to go and have a meal together, go and play sports together, whatever it is, go out and shop, hike, swim, play disc golf. That was a favorite in Texas, was playing disc golf, which is Frisbee golf. We always had a blast, but it was meetings.
Yeah.
And having successful meetings, that's a part of being a regional family director.
So true.
Okay. Another one is to cast a vision. And I cannot underline how important this is. You, Mr. Regional and Miss Regional Family Chairs out there, you have a unique ability, and you're placed, and you're really asked to cast a vision for the entire region. And it is so important to cast that vision and to communicate that vision well. Where are we going? What's going to happen? It's by faith that things happen in the kingdom. We've got to have the guts to say, here's where we're going. Here are some concrete ideas, some quantifiable goals that we want. Here's some things we want to do. It's so, isn't it true that Jesus asked us to say to that mountain, be moved, verbalize it. You got to verbalize it. Where is the mountain? Point at it and ask it to be moved. And that's how, and we need to verbalize that, our vision. Jesus, he talked about Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And it happened. He had a vision for where the church would go and how it would grow. And he communicated that vision. So you want to be able to do that. I've heard people say sometimes that I go where they say, the victory, we come to a meeting, how you doing? Say, hey, I'm doing great. The victory is that we're all together here. And I go, I'm thinking, I love you, dude, but I don't think that's the victory. The victory is not just that we're all here together and getting along. That's sort of a low bar that we can step over. How about something higher? How about we can put some stuff on the screen? We can pray to God and see where His Spirit is directing us. That great things can take place. That this can be this can be a great time in God's church and in His kingdom. I just think it's important that we cast that vision, all right? Now, then I want to add that vision takes preparation. It takes prep work. You want to pray. You want to work with the key folks in your family of churches to make sure that this is a unified, collective vision, that you've asked for wisdom from time in prayer, from fasting, from the Word, and a collective vision from people, men, women, older, younger. You know, the old guys have dreams and the young guys have vision, whatever, but you want to make sure that you prep it well and then communicate that to people. I remember in 2012 when we put out a little video in Texas, and it was a vision calling for 10 church plantings. It was all about 2020 vision. And so here we had 8 years to go, and we said, let's have 10 church plantings by 2020. That's our 2020 vision. And God worked. I remember 300 people at that seminar in Dallas. We had the whole region pulled together. 300 people stood up and said, "I'm willing to actually move to make one of these plantings take place." And so we were off. Now, we didn't exactly make the goal, but we did make the 10 part of it. 10 couples stepped in to brand new leadership roles in churches. So we were able to supply new leaders in places and plant teams as well. Whether it was Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Corpus Christi, College Station. Just recently,
some of those were church plantings.
Yeah, no, some of those were church plantings. Several were, and we just planted a church I'm a part of the planting to New Braunfels, Texas here, and this was somebody that came on board. Anyway, it's been around. We made the number 10. About half of them were plantings, and about half of them were new leaders sent. But we went ahead and said, let's put it up there. Let's go for it. And that's inspiring. I know it inspires me when I see leaders do that now. And that's what the regional family chair couple is in such a great position to do. Not just to dictate it.
Yes.
Not to make it too far out there, but to set a goal out there that's really godly and righteous that people can get behind and be a part of. Very exciting.
And what I appreciated so much during that time is that it was a real collaborative effort, right? It wasn't Mike and I saying, here's where we're going to go. I mean, we're all surrounded by really intelligent, spiritual, faithful people. And it's not up to you to do it all. I mean, it's up to you to create that atmosphere, to create that synergy of we're all in this mission together. It's not Mike and Anne-Brigitte dictating a vision. And that was what was so wonderful about that 2012 vision. It was everybody involved, everybody talking about it, everybody taking on a piece of it. Some people supplied people to go on the team. Some people supplied leaders to go on the teams. And I think that, again, you can get in this position and feel like it all falls on you to do these things. And wow, I don't do that to yourself. I mean, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, people that have better gifts than you do, that have a different set of gifts than you do. So all of us together using our gifts, I think, really casting that vision that it doesn't just fall on one person, that it's the whole group working together to accomplish it.
And I want to add that we're not talking about just numeric growth. It was great to see all these people rise up, but other people that rose up across the states of Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. Success hinges on not just a few couples going out, but people rising up who want to serve others, serving Kids Kingdom, pass out the communion on Sundays, people that want to lead a Bible talk or be administrators, people who serve as elders, deacons, people who serve as teachers, people who serve in 50 different capacities. It's not just about growing numerically, but it's about growing personally across the board. As we all grow, then the rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we saw during this period. It was a great time of growth and expansion because we were growing numerically, but we were growing personally. We were growing spiritually. Yeah. We were growing in our gifts. And we were laying a few talents on the altar, and God was blessing us with more.
Yes.
It was a great time. Well, the last thing I would say on this would be is honesty and transparency. I think that's probably a very key quality that an RFC has to have to really successfully lead. Sometimes we can go through periods of time where we have an aversion to facing facts. And, sometimes it's like, we're talking about it I'm talking with my wife and they're talking in the car on the way home, but it doesn't get discussed as a group. And sometimes we can chicken out from talking about things that people are talking about in private and in their home. Look, if your church or your family of churches aren't growing, they're going backward, if there's problems with the spiritual growth of people, if there's problems with this or that, they're talking about it. And I would say to you, get up. If something bad if it's not good in this area, talk about it. Go ahead and mention it. Did we go backwards last year? What are some metrics? Did we give less money? Was there a defeat? bring it up and say, this is the way we're going to move forward. It's not enough just to be able to talk about future goals. And everyone loves to talk about past victories. Yeah. But can you talk about past defeats? We've got to be willing to look at things and ask, how's it going? And how can we do better? Now, I know back in the 90s, I think back in the 90s at times, I gave in to maybe I was overly focused on certain numerical metrics. And I think that's not good. But you can also drift into a naive avoidance of facts and how we're doing. And it can just be, well, listen, it's not going well, but we're not going to bring it up because that's discouraging. No, I'll tell you what's discouraging is when people go home and they go, man, it ain't going well. When are they going to talk about it? That to me is so important. And of course, there's a good way and there's a bad way to talk about anything. But you want to be a good RFC, in my opinion, then figure out how to address the elephant in the room. I remember one time, it was a rough period of time in Texas. And I said, well, we all got together and I said, well, first point is the elephant in the room, all right? And things hadn't been going well in a couple areas. The second point was the giraffe in the room, okay? And the third point was the rhino in the room.
We did live in Africa.
We laughed, we had a good time with it, but we were able, as a leadership group, it was about 150 people in the room, but we were able to talk honestly about what was going good and what needed to go better, and not to discourage people or beat them down.
Or shame them.
But rather, let's talk about it, because we're going to all talk about it in the car on the way home.
Right.
I mean, it's not a secret.
Right.
So let's talk about it and provide the leadership and the guidance. That kind of honesty and that transparency. Just don't go radio silent as congregations drift into lukewarmness or go backward.
Yes.
Don't go radio silent. Hey, I'm a little nervous. I don't know what to say. That's right. And you may not say it perfect, but saying something is usually better than just going radio silent in a time of need, okay? Be sure you're willing to be honest and transparent. And our members are mature adults. They're not like, oh, he brought up something kind of sad. Oh, I'm going to fall apart spiritually. No, actually, they'll be glad if you are honest.
Right.
They're longing for the day when the leaders will stand up and talk about it. And so that, to me, is a big deal, because share the victories. We love to share the victories, but share the defeats in a loving way.
Yes.
People already see it. They'll be glad you did, and then we can move forward unified. Honesty and transparency. I think it's so important.
Yeah. There's a lot, isn't there? There's often global, regional, your local congregation where you work. And I think, years ago, Tess Fontenot did this example about, for the women, it was a conference. She talked about how we seek to balance. And she had a picture, it's a Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss book from the US, and it was this character balancing all of these plates. I mean, huge amounts of plates, and he couldn't do it, and of course it all falls apart in the book. So she said, very often that's what we're trying to do. We keep adding more and more. And, I'll never forget it, because she had then had a circle, a graphic circle, and Jesus was in the center of the circle. And so I think whatever we put into our schedules must come from the center of Jesus. Jesus has to be at the center of whatever decisions we make. Will it bring honor to him? Will it help my family? Will it help the church to grow? Will it mature me spiritually? Am I giving it? I mentioned earlier ego. I think sometimes we can take on more and more ego because it makes us feel better about ourselves. And that's just the truth. I mean, a lot of us live in cultures where the more you take on, the more you have to, you brag about how tired you are. And it's kind of a badge of honor instead of, wow, you really shouldn't be that tired. Jesus said, come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. So it's really, I do think that it definitely begins with Jesus at the center of our decisions. And another thing is to listen to those around you that know your life, that know your situation, your strengths, your weaknesses and challenges. I think often it's human nature to think we can take on more than we actually can. We are not infinite. Only God is infinite. We are finite. And I think when we take on too much, things start to suffer. Our families often suffer. The local congregation that actually pays us can suffer. That's not good. And I think we end up spreading ourselves so thin we can tend to not do well in any area. So I would say, check your ego. I would say balance coming from Jesus at the core. I would say check your ego. Like I said, I mean, don't take on more just because you feel good and it makes you feel better about yourself. And surround yourself with people that will say you're doing too much. And then figure out what is most important. I mean, those are some thoughts that I had.
We were just blessed with great people around us. God brought great people to the party, and I'm thankful. All those years in Africa, I'm thankful for Steve and Lisa going back to early days training. I'm thankful for Jim Brown, and I'm thankful for, especially in Africa, for Nietzsche and Daisy Aguaya, for the Florence, for Richard and Sarah Alawaye, and Justin and Irene Renton, and a host of others I know, whatever. And when I think about Texas, I think about the Assads and the Wens and the Hoopers and the whatever. I mean, there's so many people that were close friends, and God blessed us. We couldn't have done things without the help and the love of the friends that were around us. And as we press on now in retirement, and we're a part of this, our 7th church planting, by the way, into Braunfels, Texas, there's a great collection of people that are around us. It's really great just to be a part of this really cool team. And I think that's really helpful, is to be blessed by the friends and the relationships that you have. Well, I mean, there have been a couple of times in my ministry career where I actually pushed it too hard, and I even had health repercussions, migraines, or I mean, I could push it too hard, and
In the hospital.
in the hospital,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I ended up with migraines in the hospital 2 or 3 times, and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, being retired has been great, just to really focus on my health. If anything, I wish I had even focused more on my health. I thought I was whatever, but man, I even wish I'd have focused even more on it. But it's important. So I relax now with, I'm still very active. Like I said, we do disciple a couple of other churches, and we're very active in the church planting. It's very exciting. But I do spend good time just trying to stay healthy, eating right, getting exercise. I'm an avid gardener. I get out, I can mow, cut, trim, chop, weed. That's my gym, and I love it, and keeps me thinking and designing, and you know, just I love that. It's hard work. I love walking. I love hiking. This year I hiked in Yosemite with my oldest son, and I mean, these are things I really enjoy doing.
Wow, I do love to relax and recharge. I do think that early on in the ministry, we figured out that we needed time with just the 2 of us and not to be run by our schedule. And so we would take every Monday, and then, you know, that became quite a popular practice in terms of it being somewhat of a Sabbath, though not a true Sabbath, but a rest. And I think that was really important for our sanity, for our health, for our rhythm. We did that every Monday. And then once we had children, we would take chunks of time on the weekend or during the week to make sure we spent time with them. I love to cook. I have thousands of recipes that I will never, ever get to. I love to bake. I love nature. I love just being out in the quiet. I do get recharged by being with people, but I also get recharged by just seeing what God has done in nature. But I would say cooking and baking, that's That's my thing. He enjoys it too because he gets to eat.
She cooks, I clean. We've been doing Mondays as a married couple since 1984. We quickly learned in the ministry can swallow up your entire world. So we knew that, and so we started taking Mondays completely off, and starting all the way back in 1984, early on in our ministry, when we arrived in New York. And also, too, there's so, of course, obviously, a lot lessons could be given on family, but the dinner time family, that was also every day dinner time and as the kids grew older and older, just no electronics, let's talk, let's catch up. And it just seemed like the older they got, the more fun. And we all still, to this day, our kids are all in their 30s, and it's still just a blast to get together around the dinner table. And now it's more and more people and grandchildren even. And I just think family always was a great recharge for us.
When they say people that are in jobs, in careers that have to do with people, your job never really ends, right? It's not like I'm an engineer and I've built a house and it's finished, or a bridge and it's done. And it's very important for people that are involved in careers that have to do with others, that they have something that has a beginning and an end, whether it's painting or gardening or cooking or baking or photography or something, or hike, or because what it does is for me, when I do these things, it's therapeutic, because I can't really follow a recipe and be thinking about the problem with somebody, because then we'll end up with something we don't want to eat. So I think that's been a really good thing for us.
Yep. I also enjoy languages, and that helped out in the ministry career as we traveled from country to country. And I have always loved languages, so learning languages, and I speak 5 and read 1, and I've preached sermons in French, Portuguese, Swahili,
English,
butchered Spanish, and I do read Koine Greek from, I do read that. So it's like, I do enjoy that. I'm not an expert really, except maybe in English, but I do enjoy that a lot, and God's blessed that.
I think we're saying find something, right? Keep growing. Don't ever stop growing. I think it's especially when we're very successful, it's so easy to have this internal feeling like I've arrived, I've gotten there. And I'm not saying that we beat ourselves up. I'm not saying that we don't enjoy the successes that God has given us, but there's always room to grow, because Jesus is the goal. And that's okay. And I would say that's the biggest thing, is to keep growing, to understand you're going to continue to make mistakes until the day you die. You're going to continue to have victories until the day you die. I mean, I can't wait for heaven. But I think that's one big thing. And the other thing is, in that kind of a sub point with that, I would say resist the temptation to think you're the best, even when a stat comes out and you're at the top of the list. It's such a tool of Satan to pride ourselves on things that God has done, and to always just give him the glory, and be grateful that he's given you gifts you can use. Be grateful that he's using your gifts to accomplish his will. And I think that just really helps.
That's right. Be willing to get mentoring in the ministry. Honestly, too many times I hear about younger people that are going into the ministry, and they go to get a job. And you need to get a job, but get discipled. Attach yourself to somebody if you at all possibly can, and get training and learn from that person. Great filmmakers often begin being mentored or watching others ahead of them and having a time of learning. No matter what industry you talk about, great teachers started as student teachers, and great preachers and leaders begin as interns and learners. But that's a time, attach yourself to really good ministries where you can see ministry that you truly respect and allow that to help you, to form you, just as Jesus modeled it in the Gospels. Jesus walked with 12 people. You know, when he left, that's what he left behind. He left behind those 12. There were only 120 in the upper room. But those 12 turned the world upside down. Be somebody who can be formed, who can be mentored. Yes, by Christ. Yes, by God. But if you're really, truly being discipled by God's word, then you're going to recognize the importance of discipling.
Yes.
And you're going to recognize, I want to attach myself to somebody who knows what they're doing. There's no great carpenter, plumber, there's no great electrician who doesn't first spend some time as an apprentice learning from the journeyman, the master, plumber, carpenter, electrician. The same is true in ministry. Find out, you want to be a regional family chair? Talk to those who have gone on before you. Get some advice. Get help. Even we're retired, but I appreciated Edwin Shumba in Harare, Zimbabwe. He called me up one day. He said, let's talk. And we talked for over an hour about just being a regional family chair. What does it mean? I appreciate his humility. He's a great leader, but he had the humility to call and ask questions. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I would encourage anyone to, wherever they are in their ministry walk, to have the courage to get help and be raised up.